Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
Hello, and welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath, here to help you navigate the path to financial independence and reclaim your time so you can focus on what really matters. Today, we have an extraordinary guest, someone who's revolutionizing family medicine and empowering physicians to take control of their practices and their lives. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Josh Umbehr, founder of Atlas MD and a pioneer in direct primary care. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. I think DPC is such an incredible thing in the finance world, in the doctor world, and in the healthcare world. I think everyone wants it now, especially, and you're providing it. So let's dive into it. You've had such an incredible journey in medicine. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us about your journey in medicine and what inspired you to create Atlas MD.
Yeah, it's been an interesting arc. I like to joke. Growing up, my dad was a trash man. He's a lawyer now, so we still tell people he's a trash man because it's less embarrassing. You know, best part is now he's our lawyer, so he helps docs in direct care, and it's great to work with him again. But that's pivotal because I'll say the direct care membership model sort of comes from that business. Watching him run, you paid once a month, we picked up once a week. Why make it more complicated than that? And then in undergrad, I started working for a plastic surgeon, mostly just a shadow as a pre-med, and then that turned into a job. And a brilliant cutter, fresh out of fellowship, and no one taught him how to build insurance. And so it was a struggle just to get paid. He'd make pennies on the dollar for what he should because no one explained how to do coding or HCFA 1500 forms or modifiers or all these games where insurance would just leverage bureaucracy against him. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I've seen a good business run. Surely every clinic isn't like this. And then you find out they are. But I went looking for ones that weren't and found concierge medicine on the high end and a fantastic doctor, Dr. Vern in Portland, Oregon, who passed a few years back. But he had a beautiful simple care and $50, $75, or $100 per visit for simple, medium, complex. So you can kind of see the two extremes. And then was heavily involved in the American Academy of Concierge Physicians or whatever it was called then, that went through several branding changes over the years. And the dirty secret was 98% of them failed, right? Because $25,000 per person per year is just not something that works very often. And
a lot of money.
That is a lot of money, even for the 1%ers, and especially back then. But a lot of things, airbags or car phones, they often start with the rich and work their way down. So we saw, I think that was the invaluable cutting of our teeth that said, okay, here's what does work, and here's a lot of examples of what doesn't work. So put the fear of God in you to say that you have to come out and do something of value, of interest to make this actually work. So I think that's when we started our practice straight out of residency, 2010. We definitely don't want to fail. When going from starting internship year to graduating, the graduating seniors that were there when I started my internship year were 3 years out and leaving medicine. People often ask you, was it scary? No, the standard model was scarier because you knew. I mean, there was a very good chance you were going to be burnt out, not like medicine by the end of that. And so we knew we wanted to do something different, and that took the form of a very affordable version of concierge where we could fix all the things we didn't like about healthcare, about the business model, about the patient experience. And now 14, 15 years later, it's as big as ever. So it's been an exciting ride.
Wow. Okay. First you said we, so who else is on this journey with you?
I feel like everybody. It's the proverbial we. My partner, Dr. Doug, is a co-founder. We went to residency together. We went to the same high school together, but didn't know each other. But he ran track with my wife, who's our nurse and CFO. Yeah, I joke. About every 18 months, we brought on a new doc, and basically hiring my friends from residency until I ran out of friends, which was unfortunately very quick. But because no one believed in the model at first, understandably, docs were skeptical that, and really aggressively resistant to the idea of concierge medicine back then, because that was expensive and cutting certain groups of people out of the system, and really just a solution for a few, but not for the system.
Right.
We actually had to overcome that. I think patients love the term concierge because they implies high value, high customer service, et cetera. But doctors worried you were just skimming off the top. We had to show unlimited visits, no copays, free procedures, free EKGs. EKG cost me 36 cents. Once they saw a lot of those things, then that, at least on the doctor side, helped them understand, okay, this is something different. And then for years, forever, we've done, meets and greets and consulting with docs, and just gave everything out that we could to help the movement. So now, 15 years and thousands of doctors into it, it really is a we. We got here because of lots of great doctors doing lots of great things in the space.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, DPC has really taken off recently. And at least in my, realm of internet, I feel like everyone seems to be talking about DPC. Whereas when you went into it right out of residency, which is super brave. I mean, you say, the other practices were scarier, but I can't imagine having the guts to do that right out of residency. So, good on you. And you've been in this space for a while. How many doctors do you have in your practice now?
Yeah, we have in our own practice 5 physicians, myself, 4 others, 2 locations. But nationwide, we have almost 1,700 doctors on our platform, and we probably make up 70 or 80% of the space. So it's really interesting when you compare that. It took Starbucks 16 years to get their first 17 stores, and that's coffee. Healthcare moves slow, but it does move. And it was wild. We were concierge, we still are basically, but direct care wasn't even a term until 2 or 3 years after we had opened, because
Right.
it just hadn't gotten to that level yet. So yeah, we've been around long enough to get some gray hairs. Mm-hmm.
So for listeners who may not be familiar with direct primary care, can you tell us how it differs from the traditional healthcare model and also from the concierge model?
Yeah. First, the traditional model, I think, is just wasn't designed for patient care. And I wrote my letters for getting into med school and residency, both on, for as long as I can remember, family medicine's dying on the vine. Don't go into that. It's a dead specialty, et cetera. But I never thought so, because it often offers so many opportunities to redesign it the way it's supposed to be correctly. And standard insurance-based primary care isn't bad. It's just, I would say, bad at it, right? Good people in a broken system. And we all agree it's a broken system. And what always causes me to pause is why are doctors who are so intelligent so willing to stay in a broken system that, I try to make the infectious disease analogy. We're very smart people who do very dumb things. For 20, 30, 40 years, we brought influenza patients to the office because that's how we could bill for it, when
Right.
that flies directly in the face of everything we've been trained on for infectious disease, right? But it's the
That's
only
true.
way we got paid. So we just
Yeah.
did this, bang head here. We knew it didn't make sense. We knew it would put our other patients at risk, but so we end up being kind of good rule followers, professional students. And the traditional model does that. I say, again, it's easy to typecast direct care as anti-insurance. It's pro-efficiency. The idea that a wrench makes a pretty decent hammer, but a hammer makes a horrible wrench. Insurance is a great tool when used correctly. Home insurance, life insurance, car insurance. But those are actual insurance models. Healthcare is really a poorly designed financial prepayment model. And then that leads to abuses in pricing and inflation and all these other things that would normally be controlled in a good market. And if we want to put our patients first, I find it interesting that often, and maybe this listener base will feel differently if they're motivated for finances, is that most doctors struggle to separate themselves from the finances, that they can't be a caring physician and be interested in money. So then they
Right.
just bury their head in the sand. but then this is the result that we got. And so it's okay for an administrator to deal with money, but not the doctor. Well, that's just pushing the pain away and ignoring it. If we take our Hippocratic oath seriously of do no harm, that has to mean do no financial harm. In this day and age, that's the biggest thing we can do, right? We're not taking pumps off the water handles of cholera anymore. We're thinking long term. If we want to fix healthcare, if we want to save family medicine, if we want to put our patients first, then you've got to think about it different. And the insurance model doesn't allow that because it's too big. So you kind of have to step outside of that and say, all right, how would you do it different? And be willing to take a risk on some level for your patients. And for that, it means, all right, use insurance like it's supposed to be used for big stuff, rare stuff. Primary care is not that. Once you sort of realized what all these other industries realize, that membership models are great, present a high value. It's no secret. This is written in all the business books. And be interesting, be valuable, be helpful, and you'll grow. Once we realized the simplicity of a membership model, I don't want to bill you different prices for viral pharyngitis, fungal pharyngitis not otherwise specified, bacterial. Like, it'd be so silly to have a menu that complex, and people don't want that either. They don't know how much care they need. They don't know when they need it, but when they need it, they want it, and they want it now, and they want it from someone they trust, and they don't want to have to worry about the price.
Yeah.
The strength of the membership is great, right? It's fractional ownership. I can go to Planet Fitness for $10 a month and have access to, I'll make this number up, $1 million in equipment. That's what we should be doing in healthcare. Now, I don't have to make money on you. This is, I tweeted about it yesterday. Direct care is, in a fun way, not special. It's Costco for healthcare. This video on Costco was talking about how they intentionally lose money on everything in their store. Right? Why? Because you can't beat somebody who's losing money on selling their product. Right? They said, screw it, blue ocean strategy. We're going to do something our competition can't and won't. We'll make our money on the other stuff, the membership. Right? 96% of their revenue, I think this video said, comes from their membership, because you can't get a better value than that.
Here's a question: what's the true cost of not having a plan for your finances? With Facet, you don't have to leave that to chance. With their flat-fee membership model, Facet is building the future of financial planning. You'll get access to a team of certified financial planner professionals and guidance across tax planning, estate planning, and more. No commissions, no hidden costs, just expert advice that evolves with you. Take the next step in securing your financial future and check out which membership option is right for you. Visit facet.com/frugalphysician today. That's facet.com/frugalphysician.
And that's what direct care says is, I don't care if you need an hour, each time, or once a year, or occasionally, because you don't know that either. But now if I can do that and lower the price, where doctors struggle with the math is overpricing themselves, but also not appreciating that the average direct care practice would be about 600 patients compared to 2,000, 2,500 for an insurance-based clinic. But every $10 times 600 patients times 12 months is $72,000. There's that lends itself to a very affordable model with very low overhead, low office footprint, one nurse per 1 to 2 full docs. We don't do the new thing in the old way, bunch of staff members, bunch of overhead, et cetera. We do the new thing in the new way. And when direct care can do that, it's amazing how you get this win-win-win that seems too good to be true. And we joke all the time, if you make your model and you hear that it's too good to be true, then you're doing it right. Because insurance can't, because you're dealing with every other insurance and all their red tape and all their changes and rules and every year something different. You can't get ahead of that. You can't control your overhead. You can't control your value. Direct care at least says, look, I can do for $10 a month for kids, for $50 a month for adults, unlimited home visits, work visits, office visits, free telemedicine, calling, texting, emailing, video, no copays, because we don't need to, right? And that's not innovative on some level. It should be, because people hate copays. But in the same way Netflix was laughed out of the offices of Blockbuster when they were struggling and tried to sell out, Blockbuster said you'd be a fool to stop late fees because we make, I think at the time it was 16% or $800 million a year in profit. But Blockbuster has to enforce late fees because they can't make any money if you don't bring the physical copy back so they can sell it again. Insurance has to force a copay because otherwise there'll be no barrier for you spending 100 of their dollars. So you spend 20 or 30 or 40 of yours smarter than 100 of theirs. And that keeps premiums where they need to be. So when you already have money coming in, you don't need a copay. You just keep solving these problems for patients. Now it becomes how many problems can you solve that we get the best outcome. Now I can do procedures for free. I don't think docs would normally do that. One, they're struggling for money anyways. Insurance didn't pay them here, so it's a whack-a-mole. I'll charge you there. You do pay for procedures, or if I bill it as an acute thing, or you can't say no to an EKG if I said chest pain kind of thing. But an EKG cost me 40 cents. The coffee in the waiting room costs 80 cents a cup. Right? If I don't bill your insurance for the coffee, why am I doing it for the EKG? It's a fundamental question. Then unlimited labs. But if doctors do client bill with Quest, LabCorp, regional labs, CBC is $2. Right. TSH $2, lipid panel $3 or $4, A1C $2.50. And these are 2025 prices. When I started, a CBC was $1.50. So damn inflation. But in the market of clean water and clean energy startups, they talk about too cheap to meter. Right. And we see that around ourselves. We get unlimited Wi-Fi now and free data plans and unlimited texting. It used to be the case, right? Nights and weekends minutes, long distance minutes, these things sort of slowly dissolve with competition. When you can just do that for your patients and say, great, you don't need insurance for that. That's 10 or 15% of everything your insurance is paying out on. Great. We can't fix insurance until we fix what insurance is paying for. And I think that's where doctors have this learned sense of helplessness of, I can't change insurance, so I'll keep doing insurance, even though it's bad for me, bad for my patients, yada, yada. But if you can step in and wholesale meds, it's amazing. 1,000 lisinopril might be $20 less, if it's a smaller dose. So lisinopril or amlodipine 2.5 or 5 milligrams, less than a penny a pill.
Wow.
Too cheap to insure. It costs more to ship you the meds than it does to give you the meds. So you're like, well, I'm not going to give you 30 days because that's 30 cents or less. And then great. So what kind of better outcomes will we get when people have unlimited, in theory, blood pressure control? Now there's no barrier to that that's artificial. I'm sure it's not free, but somebody else could pay for it if a patient can't afford $1 or $2 a month. But the point is that's as cheap as it's ever going to be. And now we can start having the real conversation about how to fix insurance. And you just keep doing that. So then you can get DME cheaper. You can do doctor-to-doctor online consults. I use a Dr. Laura for derm, and $35 in 2 hours. It's easier for me to get an online consult from a specialist than it is to schedule a patient locally with a physician dermatologist, because more often than not, it's going to be farmed out to physician assistants and nurse practitioners. Right. And as a family doc, if I'm sending it in, I'm saying I want the dermatologist to see it. So, and that would be several $100s, which also goes to your insurance, which goes to your premiums, which goes to patient affordability. So all of those things, long answer to a short question, how is direct care different than traditional medicine? In some ways, it's not different at all. We haven't changed medicine. It's still textbook medicine. How you pay for it, completely different. How those incentives align to put the patient and the doctor on the same side of this. Like when you're the low information person in the room, it's easy to be suspicious, right? I don't know anything about cars. Dr. Doug, my partner, does. And so when the mechanic says $600 for something, I'm like, does that make sense? And if he says yes, then okay, that helps. So if a patient sees a $100 bill for a test or a medicine they don't know if they need, it's stressful. When they see it for $1 or $2 or $3, now it's so affordable as to not worry about, right? There's a reason our profession is losing trust. If we want to gain that trust back, A, we have to do it first, and B, we have to do trustworthy things. So that means affordable prices, transparent prices, showing that we're being fair to the patients and then being fair to the patients.
So when you're giving medicines to these patients at $1 or $2, are you billing them on top of their monthly fee for those?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We do cost plus for meds and labs.
Okay. All right. And what about doctor-to-doctor consults? Are you billing extra for like a consultation?
More or less, we generally pass that on to the patient. We have the option not to, like you have the option not to for anything. It's a scholarship patient or a patient who needs more care than they can afford. But yeah, again, $35. It's cheaper than their copay. It's faster, it's easier, and it keeps their premiums down over time.
Now, some states have restrictions. I live in New York, and New York has tons of restrictions on everything. So the doctors can't dispense more than like a 3-day supply, I think, in New York. I'm not exactly sure. How does this model work in the more restrictive states?
Yeah, the Soviet Republic of NYC. It's funny, the states that can't, because Texas doctors can't dispense meds either. And you'd think Texas and New York or Texas and California would be different.
Yeah.
It's not great. I don't blame New York for it directly. They make a lot of things hard, but also it was never an issue. Docs had never raised it before, right? In all the states, the 45 states where docs can dispense meds, only one did we have to change the laws in Montana. And the governor had no problem with it, passed through with the breeze because they're like, oh, yeah, cheaper meds, sure, right? Like that's a no-brainer. It doesn't cost the state anything. It's good for patients, good for consumers, et cetera. So these things were on the books for 40, 50 years, and docs just didn't take it up, right? I'm more concerned with the docs not dispensing meds. And this goes to a bigger point I try to make of how doctors solve problems or participate in problem solving. We'll complain a lot and vocally and publicly about PBMs. And PBMs are generally horrible. The only reason they exist is because doctors haven't run them out of business. And the way that doctors could do that is in the 45 states they can dispense meds in to do it, right? And they can do it profitably, whether you're an insurance model or not. Or if nothing else, have a free account to these. Most of them might already with their McKesson, their Henry Schein, their Anda meds. Wherever you get your supplies is probably doing the meds too. If you knew that lisinopril is a penny a pill and it's $12 at Walgreens without a coupon, well, that's, I can get you 1,200 pills or 30 pills. Knowledge is power. Whether we do it, we would know what's a good deal, what's not, how to manage these things, and we would have almost no need for PBMs overnight. We don't need new legislation. We need doctors taking up arms. Well, that sounds aggressive.
Doctors
taking up
organizing.
Organizing for the patient, putting the patient first to say, we can solve problems too, right? We don't have to wait and ask. The silliness of saying big government and big insurance is the reason this is expensive and broken. So big government and big insurance, please fix it. On some level, that makes sense. They made it bad. They should make it good. But it's bad because they don't know we're the doctors. We're the providers of care. We're at the bedside. We can, they don't know how to dispense meds better than we do. Right. So, and most don't even know that docs can dispense meds or what wholesale meds are. And that, your simvastatin can be a penny a pill. Your Crestor can be 8 cents a pill. You talk with your doctor, decide which is better. Right. And your lipid panel's 3. So, and now I can call, text, email you, and you don't have to leave work or drive or park or pay a toll or whatever that is. So you get more care more often for less money, better outcomes, happier doctors, less burnout, right? Like we're so far past the triple or quadruple win that the policy wonks talked about years ago with a better, simpler business model. The problem with New York is, we probably haven't gone and asked. New York's hard for lots of laws, but at least in terms of competition, there's no one else can do it. But docs could probably get creative and work with pharmacists and have the pharmacists do it because the pharmacists can, right? They're just as mad at the insurance model as anybody. That's why cost plus drugs and things like that are popping up with, Mark Cuban is doing it, but not as well as doctors can. Doctors can still be 40 or 50% cheaper than that. So, in Texas, that's the way some docs are looking at getting around not being able to dispense in Texas is, well, great. A couple of hundred direct care practices in Texas. We'll just hire a pharmacist. Problem solved. no legislation required, you could argue as little as $100 or $200 per doctor a month to chip in for the pharmacist, and you're set, and you're solving problems for patients. So it's an annoyance, it's a hassle, but it's not a reason to not launch in New York. And there's probably creative ways to get around that. But even if not, you're still able to save money for patients in lots of ways. So it's a crawl, walk, run, and try not to fall to the nirvana fallacy of, well, if you can't fix everything, you shouldn't do anything.
Right. Yeah. And that's such a great point that you make about complicity. Like we do have the power as doctors and the knowledge to change the system. And if we continue to work in the insurance model, we are somewhat complicit for the huge payments these patients are getting and the financial strain that we put on families simply by ordering the appropriate testing and saving their lives. I mean, if you're saving their life, but then screwing them over in their finances for the rest of them, maybe we are complicit, right, in that problem. And we should work to change that. Okay, guys, so we're going to end the podcast here because I had so many questions for Josh that I just couldn't fit it all into one episode. Stay tuned for the rest of this interview, which will be airing next week, where Josh will tell us more about direct primary care and the other amazing things going on at Atlas MD. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. Until next week, stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.